Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. It has snuck up on us pretty quickly, and we are on episode 104, which, if my math is correct, means that this will effectively serve as our 2-year anniversary.
Holy macaroni.
Yeah, I know.
That's
Pretty
awesome,
crazy.
dude.
So, we go through this at every milestone or every little milestone and just kind of briefly mention it. That it's pretty surreal that we're still doing this and haven't missed a weekend yet.
I know. And look at just thinking about all the big things that have came up. Pandemic, a child, some pretty severe illness on both ends.
New jobs,
vacations.
Yeah, crazy travel schedule, crazy work schedules. That's I was talking to this lady at the gym the other day, just probably 2 days ago, and she was talking about finding it difficult to identify time slots where she can work out. But like we always say, you don't find time, you make time if you don't have it specifically allocated for you. And it kind of reminds me of this. There's really been a lot of inconveniences for you and I over the course of the past 2 years as far as trying to record goes, but we always make sure that this is a priority, that we'll find a way to do it, whether it's insanely early or insanely late, or regardless of technical difficulties, we always make it happen, which I think is kind of a testament to how much we care about it, number one. And then number two, it kind of serves as a bigger metaphor for all the things that we try to promote.
Yes, I agree 100%. One of the main reasons for me anyways is I say a lot to it's like a blank statement I say to a lot of people all the time, just random people. When I hear somebody talking and they're down, and I make it a goal of mine to help them feel better. And I always somewhere in there sneak in, you are worth it. Because it's something that I've told myself along this journey, my weight loss journey, and it's helped. So I think that's the overall doing this consistently for 2 years is us, in my opinion, telling the fans, the people that listen every week in, week out, or even the new person that's just going to listen today, you are worth it.
What I think that's important too for both you and I, because selfishly, I don't want to speak for you, although I'm pretty sure that you feel the same way, that I get benefit out of it as well, even if it's not a guest providing us with valuable information, if it's just you and I, where I feel saying you're worth it to myself is important for this, just because I get so much therapy coming on here and talking, just because typically, I mean, it varies, but typically we start early in the morning. You and I were getting ready for this at 4:30 in the morning. And then when we start recording, it's just, I don't know. It's just this feeling of I'm starting my day off right, so to speak. And I know that you and I are both big on that, the early morning stuff, early morning workouts, early morning work, getting up early, all that stuff. And for some reason, not only do I feel accomplished early in the morning when we do this, but it's the topics at hand are always very motivating for me. So then it kind of, usually Saturdays are what I would consider, quote, my best days. I know that those are days that generally people are coming off the work week, so they want to rest. But for me, Saturdays are my gung-ho, full steam ahead, tons of work in progress days, more so than the other days, which is sometimes hard to believe that I could do any more work on Saturdays than I could on the weekend. But it's just the feeling is very, very different for me on Saturdays.
Yes.
And that's usually when we record. So
yeah, I used to have that. I used to feel like that, 100%. It set my Saturday, early on in this podcast, it would set my Saturday off to be the best day of the week. But now it's almost like it sets the tempo for the whole week to be good.
Sure.
And typically people's schedule starts on Sunday to Sunday. And it's almost like our schedule starts Saturday to Saturday. And towards the end of the week, it starts to get, rough, or you're tired or whatever. And then Saturday rolls around and it's I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. I got to get stuff done. And this is just another tool to help keep in line.
I think that part of it for me, not that I want to get off topic of showing, a little bit of thankfulness and gratefulness with how far we've come with the podcast in the 2 years. But I think part of it for me and why I find Saturdays so productive is because I'm not restricted to a schedule. So like I have a ton to do, obviously, just like I would on Monday or Saturday, or Sunday or Thursday or whatever. But Saturdays are the one day more so than the others where less of it is stressed as far as when I do it goes. So I have a laundry list of things that I need to get done, but I don't have to get them done at a certain time. Like during the weekday, got to go to work at the gym in the morning at 4:30. And then I got to go to work at school at 7:30 right after. And then I got to go immediately back to work at the gym. And I have these clients at these times and everything's scheduled for me. Whereas on Saturday, it gives me a little bit of flexibility because I have so much to do and I'll be busy all day, but I can pick and choose to a degree when I do things, which gives me a little bit of locus of control and makes me feel, it's hard to explain. I just feel a little bit more relaxed in that sense because I don't have to do this right now. I can do this right now if I want to, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It sure does. I get like, so Saturday's your less structured day.
Yeah,
for sure. Mine too. I have, like you said, a laundry list of things I got to get done, but I don't have as much of a structure to get them done.
Correct.
On a Saturday.
Yeah, that's how I feel as well. And it's interesting that you said starting the day off with Saturday because I never really think about it like that. It's almost like my week starts on Monday and ends on Friday, and the weekends are like this weird influx day where I'm not really having my weekend or my week actually progressing. It's almost like this little alternate reality where I get away from the monotony of every day. And because Sundays are like Saturdays for me as well, where there are things that I have to do every Sunday at certain times, but then largely my work schedule is broken up to having a degree of flexibility too.
Right.
Which again, it's just nice because like the change of pace and it breaks it up. And then ideally on Monday, I feel refreshed to get back to the grind, so to speak, the regular work stuff,
Absolutely.
So what's new on the training end of things for you? Over the course of these 2 years, we've usually started off the first half of the episode. If we don't have a guest, we usually start off just talking about how you feel and what training's like and just kind of give life updates, so to speak, because that was, again, going back to the whole theme of the podcast, part of what you and I initially identified as one of our 3 main pillars was giving our guests motivation and kind of accountability on our end by showing that we practice what we preach. So how's life on your end going?
I gotta say I'm back, man. Like I'm back to the roots of where this whole journey started for me. And that was getting out and putting miles under my feet and just being outside and walking every day. And it feels really, really good. I have dialed back in the gym training right now just because I'm dealing with a lower back issue it's not an injury, so to speak, but excuse me. It is I don't know. I don't know if it's a pulled muscle or what, but so I just kind of dialed back the gym for a week here. I lifted 3 days this week, but it was really light. I didn't track anything because it was just different. But I've walked 6 out of 7 days. Today will be 7 out of 7. And I'm loving it, man. I'm absolutely loving being back outside and making that consistent choice to go outside and go for a nice long walk.
Well, one of the things that you and I are adamant about, and we talk about this pretty regularly, is like just being a little bit of a detective in a sense and going back and looking at clues from your past of things that work and things that didn't work and put yourself in a situation where you made the most amount of progress. So like for me, I had this discussion yesterday. 2 days ago, someone was asking me how much I could do on a certain lift. And I was telling them and said the most that I had done on that particular lift was in college. I did this. And then I was talking about the college environment for me, where I was younger. I was eating, multiple times a day, sleeping, and going to class and lifting. That was really all your life was based around. Like, it wasn't a crazy
Right.
schedule like adulthood. You didn't really have too many adult responsibilities. Both of the jobs that I worked in college were very low stress for me at that time, just because I feel like stress is added from other life factors and it can leak its way into work, which causes your work to be more stressful. And I didn't have that at the time. So I was really
Right.
talking about how my life was conducive to gaining muscle and getting strong at that point. So, like, when I look back, I can try to implement and try to mimic what things were like back then, but logistically it's just impossible, because with an adult and with the adult responsibilities, I can't replicate what my college life was like. But you and I always talk about doing that. Is like going back, and if you're trying to build muscle, what was the time in your life that you built the most muscle? What was your nutrition like? What was your lifestyle like? What was your training like? And I think for you, you look back to when did you make the most amount of progress from a health standpoint and a weight loss standpoint? And it was doing entirely basic things and doing the outdoor walks, the long extended walks that progressed over time over time. So you got
Right.
longer amounts and further distance as you went, and that was kind of the cornerstone of everything for you.
Absolutely. And early this week, it was Monday. It started, but so Monday this past week, I woke up late. I'm not gonna lie, not late in the sense of it was at 9 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. It was, 4:15 instead of 3:45. So I just didn't have enough time to get my whole routine underway.
Uh-huh.
And I couldn't blend my shake. I couldn't, there were some things I couldn't do. And because I ran out of time before I had to walk out the door. So I just literally grabbed my Premier protein shake, a banana and 2 apples, and I put them in my bag. And I went to work. And I found myself not eating my first meal till almost 12 o'clock. And that's when I started to get hungry. So I pushed it to 12:45 because, like we've talked before, when, hunger is a sign of, it's time to start thinking about, but you don't have to satisfy that right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have something in my throat. Anyway, so I pushed it to 12:45, and then I drank a shake and ate a banana and went about my day. And I did that. I just started doing that every day this week. So it's almost like a big rubber band. So I started walking again outside in the evenings, like I used to. And my body was like, "Hey, guy, you used to fast too. You used to wait and eat until later in the afternoon." I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but it happened because now I'm not eating till after 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and I feel the best, like physically and energy wise, that I felt in a long time.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's the fasting or if it's the walking. I'm pretty sure it's the walking that's mainly the contributing factor, but I think they both work hand in hand. So yeah, it was me going through my mental file, so to speak, and plugging in my current diet and exercise routine into what used to work.
Yes. Which
So
I know that sounds pretty obvious, that, hey, do the things that brought you the most amount of success. But the reason we continue to tell people this is because I don't think that people do that regularly enough. And
right.
life is like, for me, I view life as like constant self-assessment. Like, one of the most effective strategies that I've ever used, and I do this periodically. I'll do it for a couple weeks and then kind of wane off of it, so to speak. But I've talked about it on several episodes over the course of the past 2 years, and I want to continue to try to bring it up, is constant self-assessment with what you're doing, even in the day-to-day. Not necessarily just self-assessment, like, what's my diet like? Is it like it used to be when I made the most progress? or what's my trading like? Is it what it used to be when I made the most amount of progress? But I use a strategy where I set an alarm on my phone for every hour. And every hour the alarm would go off, I would set it off, and that would set a reminder for me to mentally check in with myself. Every time it would go off, you'd look at it and say, okay, what am I doing right now? And then more importantly, how am I doing it? Because the what am I doing right now is probably the same every other or every day when that alarm goes off, whether it's 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. or 3 p.m. I'm usually doing the same things Monday through Friday at those times.
Right.
But it's really, how am I doing it? Like if my alarm goes off at 9 o'clock and I'm teaching math in the middle of class, like I try to assess, how am I teaching? Am I enthusiastic? Am I engaging the students? Do I have a positive attitude? Am I trying to reinforce this stuff pretty aggressively in a sense? Or am I just kind of up there going through the motions? And then same thing with training, same thing with relationships, same thing with doing work on the computer for clients, whatever it is. I love that as a strategy to kind of self-assess. And that makes you recognize that like everything you do in life is all about like reassessing and constant reevaluation of where you're at and where you're going.
Right. It is.
Because I've heard that, and I talked about this before as well, is the saying that in life, you're exactly where you need to be, or you're exactly where you want to be. And when you look at the scope of your life, you could potentially say, well, no, I'm not where I want to be. And then you have to recognize that you are, in a sense, because your habits have dictated that. So in life, right, you get to choose what your actions are every day. You have a ton of choice. And I'm going to let me preface this by saying I know there's like extenuating circumstances and outliers where people are in situations due to health complications or financial situations that were essentially inherited. And then not everybody has had the same opportunities growing up in the middle class like you and I have. So I completely understand that. In those situations, we're going to, I guess, ignore, for lack of a better term, and just focus on the large majority of people. The large majority of people are exactly where they want to be because their habits have dictated that. So if you don't want the lifestyle that you're in or the situation that you're in, you have to blame yourself because you wanted this, because you wanted to sleep in. You wanted to have poor nutrition. You wanted to skip the gym. You wanted to not work hard. Those are things that are in your control. So you're where you want to be based on your actions, right?
Right. 100%.
And don't you think that that's very humbling and sobering to think about? Like, wow, I can try to point the finger at everybody else or all these things that life has dealt me, but realistically, I'm where I'm at because of me and only me.
And I feel like that's the reason why my journey, my weight loss journey, my growth as a productive human journey, I think is more appropriate, because it's been more than weight loss. Like weight loss is the biggest underlying thing that people see when they see my evolution from 2018 till now.
Yes.
But there's been so much more that small changes have made. Like through this journey of losing weight and getting healthier, which in everybody that listens regularly knows that I don't feel like I have accomplished anything. But people think I've accomplished some things. So through those small accomplishments, there's been so much growth and so much like realization. So it's like making small choices can change the course of your path. So I guess this is kind of like an inspirational thing for me, like telling people it's not ever too hard.
No.
It may be the whole weight of your, and I use weight as like, I'm holding like my hands up, like I'm holding the world. The whole weight on your shoulders of everything that feels like it's holding you down may feel like it's too much to overcome. But pick one small thing, move one stone away from the pile.
Yes.
At a time. Rome wasn't built in a day. You know what I mean? Like we didn't, generationally speaking, even if you are in a spot where you've inherited debt, you have inherited you know, physical attributes through the way that your whole family and your whole generation has ate or done things, it's not too much to change.
Oh, I completely agree.
It's not going to happen today or tomorrow or in the next year in some cases.
I feel
it's like not too much.
There's so many things to unravel there. And you actually bring up a lot of good points that kind of spark a little bit of like relatability on my end. Like when you say some of those things, it hits home with me. So let's go to a quick commercial break. And when we come back, I want to kind of address those things. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. All right, Justin, prior to the break, you were talking about moving little stones. And when you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, you don't have to move the weight, the entire weight. Just move a little bit at a time and focus on things that you can control or optimize in your life. And that made me think of, I feel like that's something that I really like to address with people, because it's something that I do as a result of the way my brain is structured. But I find that it's very, very helpful in the sense that it can help mitigate a lot of issues in your life. So I'm one of those people where when I'm going through difficult times or when I have a lot of stress, and I know that everybody's like this to a degree, so I'm not really unique in this sense, where you feel like everything is completely overwhelming to the point where very, very minor, insignificant, trivial little things make the largest impact negatively on your psyche. So like you go through your day and you have all these things build up, and then something really little happens, like you spill a little bit of coffee on your shirt and you feel like it's the end of the world. Right. One of the things that I've done, it's like a mitigation strategy. One of the things that I've done over the years, and this is kind of a not like a mental disorder, but I've developed an extreme like obsessive compulsive disorder to control controllables in my life. So like cleanliness and orderliness of my house, like trying to make sure that everything is flawless and perfectly in place. Because if I have a lot of difficult things that I'm going through or I'm under a lot of stress, at least when I come home, I won't have a messy house. You know, likewise with my car, keep my car perfectly organized and clean. So that way, if I have a horrible day at work, when I get to my car, at least I'm not getting into a filthy car that I'm stressed about cleaning. And it's little things like that that can really help change how your life is structured and how your life feels, is if you focus on controlling the things that you can control, which kind of alludes to the conversation previously about you may be put in circumstances that are less than ideal, but if you can control the controllables, that will make those bad circumstances less bad in a sense, I guess, right?
Right.
So like that's kind of how I go about things, is looking at, you know, little nuance that I can fix and that I can control. And then it seems like everything else will fall into place a little bit better because of it.
Yeah, it's exactly right. And that's something that I talk about off the air a lot, is controlling the controllables. So what I eat, what time I wake up, you know, where I go out to eat or what I go out to do, like I control those things. And I can simply say no, or I can say yes, and I have to deal with the consequences. So it's controlling the controllables is such an important part of everything we do as people.
And sometimes certain people's lives or how they identify, they may have less controllables. Like take an athlete, for example. An athlete sometimes feels, especially in team sports, and I felt this way during team sports, that there's actually not a lot that's in your control because you have teammates and teammates may let you down sometimes. But the one thing that I was always taught through playing sports is that there's a lot more in your control than you think, because the two things that you can always control are your effort and your attitude.
Right.
So the effort that you give and your response to, kind of what's the acronym that they put into an equation where it's, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. Like outcome plus, or event plus, is it E plus R equals O? Event plus your response equals the outcome, I believe. I hope I'm not
Yes,
messing
I
that
think
up.
that's right.
E plus R equals O, the event that happens, and your response to it is what dictates the outcome, not just the event. How you respond to things is essentially controlling what is actually going to happen, what the real outcome is. And I know, dude, like full transparency, like I'm not always the best at responding to things in the right way.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. I mean, we have to, because we have this thing that sneaks up on us. It's called emotion.
Yeah.
We have an emotional response to certain things that even if we react poorly at first, we do have the opportunity to not go back, but change how we go forward.
Sure. And I think that mine is almost like internal response is what I'm working on the most, because external response is usually pretty good. I feel like I'm getting a lot better at not taking bad days out on people. I'm doing a lot better at trying to be positive with people most of the time when I can. And my negative response, so to speak, is always internal. So like I let things stress me out and I try not to show it, but I kind of like keep it in. I just bottle it up to the point where it builds and builds and builds and stresses me out even more. So some of my response is actually letting things out. So sometimes a better response to an event for me would be, if it is stressful, not just trying to do the cliche and be positive about it, but sometimes allowing myself to be negative, but letting the negativity out and talk to someone about it versus trying to contain it. Because when you try to contain things like that, for me, it gets really, really overwhelming. I'm not sure if you go through that same thing or not.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. It's almost like bottling up emotions. It's not a good plan.
And I feel like everybody probably goes through that to an extent. But again, the conversation leads back to self assessment. Like figure out what type of person you are. Because they always say the first step to recovery is admitting that you have a problem. And you could talk about that with like drug addiction or any type of like prolonged chronic negative trait that you have. But I think that's like a day-to-day quote too, is like admit when you're off task, admit when you're off topic, admit when you're not working as efficiently as you should, and continue to go through that assessment day to day and see how your life changes because of it. Because I think that there's going to be benefit that comes from it.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's interesting as we go through this 2-year journey together, and I say together, not as you and I, but you, myself, and the listeners, is how much growth I feel like I've done mentally too.
Yeah, me too. And you know what is something that sparked for me is I would love to hear from listeners that we don't necessarily hear from all the time, and hear how this like relationship of all of us together have evolved. Like I'd like to hear how the average person who listens to our podcast has made incremental changes and taken the bull by the horn, so to speak, and made progress. I'd love to hear that.
I think one of the coolest things that I see in terms of podcasting, because I listen to a few regularly, is when some of like, I don't want to say lower level podcasts, but when podcasts are in their infancy, like when I say podcast, I'm saying normal podcast, not like Joe Rogan,
right?
Millions and millions and millions of listeners. So Joe Rogan's interaction with his listeners is essentially zero, because I mean, when you're that famous, you can't really respond to people or do anything. But when I listen to these not lower level, but newer podcasts that are in their infancy, I really like listening to other people who have like listeners reach out to them. Say, oh, well, the listener messaged me and we got this DM for one of our listeners and they said, you know, how this changed your life, or this, even if it doesn't have to be life changing. Like when somebody references the podcast or sends me a text and a screenshot from their phone, like they're listening on Spotify or they're listening on this, it's really, really cool for me just because I feel like it gives me a sense of justification for why we do this all the time.
Right.
Getting up every morning on a Saturday, typically it's Saturday morning, but the days change from week to week, but usually it's Saturday morning when we record. It justifies it. I feel like, okay, this is worth it because one person is listening today or this week or whenever.
And I think that's the unique thing between the two of us. Like the one unique thing is it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 people listening and it's changing 1,000 people's lives. As long as it's one.
Yes.
As long as there's one, I'm not done. We have work to do.
I agree with that, man. I think that's a nice place to kind of close up shop for the week. So closing up with the 2-year anniversary, is there any type of remarks you'd kind of like to send people on their way with for the end of the episode?
Yeah, and I don't know, I haven't it's a thought that popped in my head just now, and I don't know if I'm going to structure it correctly, so I hope I do. If you are the one, thank you. And you're not alone. Like if whatever you're going through or whatever you're doing, whatever journey you're on, remember it's we, you, the Chasing Dreams podcast, all of us are on the same journey. It may take us down different paths, but the roadmap is all the same. It's the same roadmap. We're all on different streets, and the destination is success. Rather it be in business or health or family or faith or whatever your journey is, the end goal is success. So
I like it.
Keep going.
That's awesome. Very well said. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast. And coincidentally enough, we've come to the end of another year of the Chasing Dreams podcast. So we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. And we are forever grateful for everybody who listens in. Just like Justin alluded to earlier, if you are the one or the thousands that have downloaded this and listened over the years, we are so, so, so thankful for your listenership. And we look forward to starting another year with you next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge and take it all. I'm born to be untamable.